In this video, I will show you how to prove that two triangles are congruent. Or, if we can't, we'll say that we can't prove the triangles are congruent. These are the 5 ways that we can prove that triangles are congruent. Side, 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 angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse, leg. These two sets of information don't prove anything. Side, side, angle, angle, those prove nothing. If we see either of these, we're going to say we cannot prove the triangles are congruent, and then we will simply move on. So as I look at problem number 9, just looking at one triangle at a time, I see that we have 2 angles and a side that are marked congruent. 2 angles and a side. Now, if I have 2 angles and a side, it's either going to be this one, all right, you see it has 2 angles and a side, or it could be this one. Now, here's how I tell the difference. If the side is between the 2 angles, all right, between, then it's angle, side, angle. If the side is not between the 2 angles, then it's angle, angle, side. So, look, here's one angle that is marked, here's the other angle. If I connect those dots, that shows me the side that is between those 2 angles. Notice that the side that is marked is not between the 2 angles. So because it is not between, that makes this an angle, angle, side situation. So I'm going to go ahead and put angle, angle, side. And now we have to make the congruence statement. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle. Well, angle A corresponds with angle D. Angle B, see the single mark? That corresponds with angle F. So I have DF, that only leaves E. So that's number 9. All right. Let me reset here. Erase this yellow. Looking at problem number 10, I see that we have 2 sides and an angle. This is the trickiest one because there are actually 3 possibilities. This obviously has 2 sides and an angle. This one down here that's crossed out also clearly has 2 sides and an angle. Even though if it's this one, it doesn't work, and we will circle cannot prove the triangles are congruent. Now, there's another one that we also have to include, hypotenuse, leg. Hypotenuse, leg is also side, side, angle. So that's 2 sides and an angle, but it just it happens to be for right triangles. All right, we just if it's a right triangle, we call it hypotenuse, leg. So we have these 3 possibilities. Let's start with hypotenuse, leg because that is the easiest one to eliminate. Only a right triangle has a hypotenuse. Is this a right triangle? No. That means it cannot be hypotenuse, leg. All right, so it's either going to be side, angle, side if the angle is between the 2 sides. Otherwise, it'll be this one, which means they can't be proven congruent. So the question is between. Is the angle between the 2 sides? Well, here's what I mean by between. Here's one side that's marked congruent. Here's the other side that's marked congruent. Can you see where those 2 sides meet? They meet right here at angle B. That is not the angle that's marked. The marked angle is at C. So the angle is not between the sides. The angle that's between is where the sides meet. So this is not between. So that means it is not going to be side, angle, side. That means it's this one. Side, side, angle is not a thing. So that means that we're going to circle that we cannot prove the triangles are congruent. We're going to circle that. And when you circle this, do not fill in anything on the other 2 lines. Don't even put SSA because that doesn't exist. All right, just circle this and move on. All right. Look at number 11. I see that we have two angles and a side. All right, two angles and a side. That means it's either going to be this one or this one. The only question is between. Is the side between the two angles or not? Okay, well, here is, let's just look at one triangle at a time. Angle C is one of the angles. Angle A is the other. The side that is between those two angles is right here. And guess what? That is the side that's marked. So the marked side is between the two angles. That makes this angle side angle. Now for the congruent statement, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle what? Well, A is congruent to E. Notice the double marks. B is congruent to F. Notice that they are both blank. Okay, so I've got E and F. That just leaves D. All right, how about problem number 12? For problem 12 and 13, we have to mark something ourselves. When the triangles are touching like this, often there's something that we can mark even though it's not pre-marked. We can mark it ourselves. In this case, we have an X. And when you have an X, angles that are across from each other are called vertical angles. So these two angles are a pair of vertical angles, and vertical angles are always congruent. So now, focus on one triangle at a time. For example, focus on this triangle over here on the left. Notice that we have two sides and an angle. All right, so I need to change my highlighting here. Two sides and an angle. There are three possibilities. It could be this, because that has two sides and an angle. Or it could be this, that's two sides and an angle. Or it could be hypotenuse leg, which is two sides and an angle, but it's a right triangle. Is this a right triangle? No, I see no 90-degree angle anywhere. That means that it's not hypotenuse leg. So it's going to be one of these. Is the angle between the two sides? That would make it side angle side. Well, I told you to look at one triangle at a time. So I have this side is one of the ones that's marked. This is the other marked side. All right, these two sides meet right here at angle A. And guess what? The angle that we marked is angle A. So the angle is between the two sides. That makes this side angle side. Now, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle what? Both of the angles A are congruent. So A is going to be congruent with A. Then angle B, notice how angle B is across from the single mark. Okay? Notice how angle E is across from the single mark. That means that angle B corresponds with angle E. They're both across from the single mark. Okay, they're messing up my system. Okay, so B and E match. That gives me AE, and D is the only one left. Okay. Number 13. These triangles are touching. There's probably something that we can mark. The shared side. When they have a side in common, that side will automatically be congruent for both triangles. So we're just going to put that mark right there. Now, focus your eyeballs on one triangle at a time. Okay, so for right now, look at this triangle with me, please. Okay, notice as we look at this triangle, what do we have marked? We have two angles and a side. Two angles and a side. What are the possibilities? Well, it could either be this one or this one. Those are the two that have two angles and a side. The question is between. Is the side between the two angles or not between? Well, check it out. Here's one angle that's marked. Here's the other angle that's marked. This is the side that is between those two angles. Notice that the marked side is something different. It is a side that is not between the two angles. So since it is not between, that makes it angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. Now, be careful. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle what? Notice that the yellow triangle and the white triangle are not mirror images of each other. They are backwards. Do you see that on the yellow triangle, the single mark is at C? But for the white triangle, the single mark is at A. That means that angle A of the yellow triangle, okay, actually corresponds with angle C of the white triangle. Okay, they're flipped. So just be careful. So angle A actually corresponds with angle C. All right, notice that the yellow angle A is the blank one, and the white angle C is the blank one. That's another way of seeing that these two match. So angle A does not match angle A. It actually matches angle C. Anyway, angle B clearly matches angle D. They both have the double mark and everything. Okay, B matches D. All right, now we have CD. That just leaves A, which makes sense because we just talked about how angle C of one triangle corresponds with angle A of the other. All right, because they're backwards, C and A. Okay, that's the trickiest part, is writing that part down. For number 14, again, the triangles are touching. These, we have some vertical angles here that we can mark congruent. All right, when you have this X, these are vertical angles. Vertical angles are always congruent. So let's start off by marking those. In addition to that, we have this extra information down here. C is the midpoint of BD. All right, when I see this midpoint statement, I really focus on the second part, BD. Here's BD right here in yellow. That matters. So C is the midpoint of that only. So that means if C is in the middle of this yellowness, that means that this side right here, 1, 2, 3, is congruent to this side right here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I have those marked congruent. So now, if I focus on one triangle at a time, so for example, just focus your eyes on this triangle for now. Can you see that we have two angles and a side that are marked? Two angles and a side. So that means it's either going to be this option or this option. The question is between. Is the side between the two angles or not? Well, looking at these angles, I have an angle at B and I have an angle at C. This is the side that is between those two angles. And yes, that is the side that is marked. So the side is between the two angles. That makes this angle side angle. Time for the congruent statement. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle what? Well, angle A is the only angle that is blank, and that's going to correspond to angle E, the only angle that is blank. B is a single mark. That corresponds with D, which is also a single mark. Now we have E, D, that only leaves angle C. Okay, let's reset. Okay, let's start by marking the vertical angles like we did before. All right, vertical angles are always congruent. This time, we have the additional information that C is the midpoint of AE. All right, that AE, that's important. This is AE right here. If C is the midpoint of that, that means that this is congruent to this. Okay, now let's look at one triangle at a time. So let's look at this triangle for a minute. Notice that we have two angles and a side. Okay, that means it's either going to be this one or this one. Is the side between the two angles or not? Well, here's one marked angle, here's the other marked angle. Here is the side that is between those two angles. That is not the marked side. The marked side is not between. That makes this angle, side. So, let's talk about the congruence statement. Triangle. Okay, A corresponds with E. They are the only ones that are blank. B corresponds with D, and C corresponds with C. All right, number 16. Again, we have a shared side. AC is shared. So we should go ahead and mark that right now. Boom. Additional information. AC bisects angle DBC. What does bisect mean? Bisect means to cut in half. So focus your eyes on the second half of that statement. Angle DCB. All right, here is angle DCB. Let me highlight it for you. DCB. That is the angle that's being cut in half by AC. So if this angle is being cut in half, that means that this angle is congruent to this angle. All right, now we have all the markings we need. Go ahead and focus on one half of this picture at a time, one triangle at a time. So focus your eyes on this yellow triangle, please. What do we have? We have two sides and an angle. There are three possibilities. It could be this one, that's two sides and an angle. Or it could be this one, which is nothing. Or it could be hypotenuse leg, because that's also two sides and an angle. Let's start with hypotenuse leg. Is this a right triangle? No. So it doesn't have a hypotenuse, so it cannot be hypotenuse leg. So that means it's going to be one of these. The question is between. Is the angle between the two sides? Well, let's see. Here is one side, and here is the other side that is marked congruent. All right, look where they meet. They meet right here at A. That means A is the angle that's between the two sides. But that is not the angle that is marked congruent. So the angle is not between the two sides. That makes this side-side angle, which is not a thing. If it turns out to be side-side angle, that means that the two triangles cannot be proven congruent. So we're going to circle this guy. And when you say that the triangles can't be proven, don't put anything on these lines. Leave them blank. Don't even write side-side angle. It doesn't exist. All right? Moving on to number 17. Okay, let's go ahead and mark the shared side again. This time, AC bisects angle DAB. That changes things. DAB is this angle over here. DAB. So, bisect means to cut in half. This angle that I just highlighted, this is the angle that's being cut in half. That means that this angle right here is congruent to this angle right here. Those are the angles that are going to be congruent. All right, now focus on one triangle at a time. So let's look at the top triangle for a second. What do we have? We have two sides and an angle. Two sides and an angle. That means it's either going to be side angle side, side angle, which doesn't exist, or it could be hypotenuse leg. Is this a right triangle? No. So it's not hypotenuse leg. Is the angle between the two sides or not? Well, let's see. Here's one side that's marked. Here's the other side that's marked. Notice that they meet right here at angle A. And that is the angle that is marked. So the marked angle is between the two sides. That makes this side angle side. All right, now for the congruence statement. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle. Well, notice that angle A is congruent to angle A. All right, angle B is going to be congruent to angle D. So if I have AD, it must be C is the only one that's left. All right, last one. All right, at least last one on this video anyway. All right, once again, we have the shared side. Let's mark it. Boom, boom. Also given that segment DC is congruent to segment BC. So DC, zip, 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 is congruent to BC. Zip, zip, zip. Okay. Focus on one triangle at a time. All right, look at this triangle, for example. What do we have marked? 3 sides. Well, there's only one possibility. Side, side, side. All right, let's do the congruent statement. All right, triangle. Okay, angle A. A is across from the triple mark. Okay, the other angle A is also across from the triple mark. So A corresponds with A. B corresponds with D. All right, they're both across from the double. All right, now I've got AD. That only leaves C.